I've been asked to speak while Pastor Phil is gone. It gives me a great opportunity to update you guys as to what's been going in our lives over the last year. And it's been very trying for us. It's been very difficult. And it's been very challenging. It's also been a lot of fun. And a lot of people don't understand that in the Christian walk, where you can have fun at the same time, or maybe not fun, you can have joy at the same time when you're going through trials. And occasionally, I'll run across a Bible verse that speaks to my heart. And this one has recently. I found it about a year ago in Proverbs. Proverbs 16:9 says, in his heart, a man plans his course. And that's the way it is with life, with all of us. We get an idea of what we want. We get an idea of what we think God wants us to do, and we set out for it. But the last part of this verse, and this is the good part, but the Lord determines our steps. So no matter where you think you're going or the problems you're going through, I want this to be an encouraging time for you guys. Not only for me to be able to share with you what's gone in our lives and in our hearts, but also to encourage you, no matter where you're at and whatever the circumstances are, that God is really in control, no matter how confusing or discouraging or trying things are. And that's what I've learned. And it's still a lesson that I sometimes struggle with, because I see in my eyes, like Pastor's been talking about, how things should look. And sometimes, as human beings, we get the wrong vision, or we get the wrong understanding of how we're supposed to live our lives. And God's Word speaks to us very clearly about that. And as we take time to look into God's Word, we can apply that to our lives. And I think that's been one thing that's been very helpful to me, working with high school kids, working with kids in other countries, and things like that. My wife and I, go ahead. My wife and I are with World Venture. We were appointed 11 years ago as overseas missionaries to the country of Lithuania. We've been serving over in Lithuania for almost 15 years. We've been going back and forth doing summer camps there, English Bible camps, working with the orphanage there that we were introduced to, working with a Baptist church there that we were introduced to. And, you see how God leads you along and God tugs on your heart. And one of the things that you need during that time is you need guidance, you need support, you need mentoring, and that's what World Venture has been able to do for us, is mentor us and work us through that process of where God put on our hearts that we're supposed to go and serve. World Venture has over 500 missionaries in over 60 countries throughout the world. Some of the countries are closed countries, would be the easiest way to put it. We're not really welcome there. Even in the country of Lithuania, we were considered a cult. We were considered subversives. Yeah, figure that one out. There's people coming from America, a country that everyone wants to go to in Lithuania, and they considered us subversives, troublemakers. And you'll see a little bit as I go through this, I'll show you some of the slides and where we ran into some problems working with the local population there. So it was really a great time for us, a time of learning, a time of growing, a time of seeing how God can use us in everything that we could do. Go ahead. Right now, I'm no longer considered an overseas missionary, but I'm still with World Venture. I am a missions coach and a church coach, which is very unusual too, because most people working with World Venture are one or the other, but usually not both. What's happened in my situation is that being a church coach, I have the ability to come into a church and offer different programs that World Venture offers. As church coach, it would be anything from helping, like what we're doing here is reformatting the youth department and things like that. So I've been very fortunate to be able to do that. And I'm on loan. I'm not supported through People's Church other than as a missionary. So I'm not on paid staff. I'm through World Venture. And that allows, just like when Paul went to different churches, when his missionaries, he wasn't supported by the actual church he went to, but yet he went and did work with them. So that's kind of nice being in this position, because no matter where I go, no one has to feel obligated to either say yes or no because we can or can't afford it. So that's a great plus in being a church coach. Now, in a missions coach, I also work with short-term projects and long-term projects. And just like me, when Maureen and I felt God leading us onto the field, we needed a place to go. We needed someone to give us direction. We needed someone to coach us, to work us through that process. And when we first told our pastor in Fort Atkinson that we felt God wanting us to go, he prayed with us. That was wonderful. And then at the end of it, he shook our hands and says, well, good luck. And didn't have any real direction as to where to send us. So being a church coach, we have that ability to come alongside of people that feel God is tugging on their hearts. I want to go serve someplace, or I want to do something, or I feel that God's leading me in a certain direction. And there's a whole process that World Venture can help you go through that. Everything from getting acquainted, getting to know who you are, how long you've felt that way, what types of work you want to be doing. World Venture does everything from aviation mechanics to church planning to children's outreach to food to digging wells, all types of ministries. So there's all types of opportunities to serve. Now that's my plug for World Venture, okay? So we're kind of done there. This summer, World Venture has 5 short-term trips planned. The first one is in Kenya. These are the dates. They are from anywhere from $2,200 to $2,400 for the trips. And that includes airfare also and everything. All of your materials and everything are needed. Mozambique is another one. Indonesia, and then to West Africa. West Africa is a medical trip, so if they're looking for nurses, doctors, that type of people for that one's very specific. The others are not as specific. If you would like to just come along to help cook or to make sure that they had the materials or anything that you feel God is giving you the ability to do, that's the type of trip that they would love to have you on. And also there's one going to China, and that one I don't have many details on. Okay. So this is what I want to encourage you with. This is a verse that God gave to me a couple of years ago, and I still love it. Who will listen to what I say? Does anyone understand? Who remembers what's going on in 1 Samuel right now during this time? Okay. Well, the Amalekites, I think I have that right. Let me double check the word, because I always mess up my words. Yes, the Amalekites have just taken over and destroyed 2 cities and carried off all of the occupants and taken them as slaves, but they didn't kill anyone. Now, that's the amazing thing, okay? So the Amalekites just came in. David comes home with his army and finds out this has happened. They've also taken David's wives and carried them off. So David goes to the elders, I'm going to use that term, and asks them what he should do, and he tells them to go and pursue them, and he does. So on the way, he takes 600 men with him. And during the battle, or during getting to the battle, 200 of the men decide that they're too tired, they can't go on. So David takes the rest. But he leaves these behind to take care of all of the provisions. There we go. To take care of all the provisions. And when he goes into battle, he subdues the Amalekites and gets back all the people that were taken, plus all the plunder. So some of the people that were fighting with him are complaining and saying, well, these people that went off to fight, we deserve it. And the people that stayed behind, they don't deserve it. But one thing we do understand is that David was a man after God's own heart. So we can take these principles and apply them also to missions. We can apply them also to life. It says here, who will listen to what I say and share? The share of the man who stayed with the supplies is to be the same as that of him who went down to do battle. All will share alike. And it's been told to me many times that as we are in ministry and we are supporting other people in ministry, let's say, all right, we'll use a simple one. Pastor Phil. Pastor Phil's leading ministry. He is preaching the gospel. People are responding to the gospel and accepting Jesus Christ. Those people who are supporting Pastor Phil and the church scripturally will also benefit rewards in heaven from their ministry of supporting. So if we take this principle and apply it to our lives today, we can do the same thing. David is saying, because he understands God's heart, those who have stayed behind to take care of those things that need to be done for those that went off to fight, their share will be the same as those who did battle. So what I'm saying, or the parallel that I'm pulling from this, is for missionaries that go off to fight or to share the gospel, those that support and stay behind, the rewards in heaven are going to be the same as those that are actually on the field. That's the parallel I use from this verse that I can pull from it, and I apply that to my own life, and it gives me great encouragement knowing that the people that are supporting missionaries or supporting pastors or anything else, they in heaven will be rewarded the same as the people that are doing it, because they're all part of the same team. It's more than a team. We're part of the same family, the family of God. Okay. So this is the country God originally drew our hearts to. Just to give you a little background of Maureen and I were married in this church. I started coming here in 1968. We were married in 79. We have 2 children. Maureen 78, yeah. I have to check my wife to make sure that I'm not messing things up. And dates and names, I do that so much. How many of you mess up a name? You ever call your children by your dog's name? Huh? Have you done that? Yeah. Or you're calling the grandchildren, but it's the other daughter's grandchildren. You're using the wrong name for the ones you're calling. Yeah, it's horrible. But it's normal. We're human. We make mistakes. But God drew us through People's Church, and People's Church has always had a great missions outreach program. I remember when we were younger, it would be a week to 2 weeks long, the missions programs here. That missionaries from all over the country, all over the world coming in here for those conferences. And you'd be able to sit down night after night and hear what God was doing through them in the countries to reach the people they were with. So it was great to be a part of that. But in 2000, Maureen and I were working in another church, helping because their youth pastor had just left, and we were helping out there with their youth program. And one of the missionaries from Hungary came over and shared with us about an opportunity to take our youth group to Lithuania. And we said, oh man, we don't have a youth pastor, or we don't have this, we don't have that. It's a former communist country. We don't know anything about it. It's probably not a safe place to go. No, that won't happen. So 3 months later, my wife left on that trip. So I was really, I got to stay home. That's okay. I'll stay home and I'll hear all about it. Back then, there were no cell phones, no computers to get communication, so we were pretty isolated. We didn't know what was going on. So being the husband of one of the people in the youth department whose wife went on, I would get lots of questions from people. Well, what's things going on over there? And I said, I don't know. I haven't heard a thing. And that's just the way it was back then. But things have changed so much now with technology. So it's been pretty cool to see this grow. And that's where God, when Maureen came back, it was amazing. Occasionally I got to pull it together too. During that time, our youngest daughter was dealing with eating disorders, and it was getting pretty scary at that time for us. And you'd think that parents who are involved in a church and are involved in the youth, their kids would be okay. Well, I know firsthand that that's not true. Kids make their own minds. No matter what the parents try to influence them, the children still make their own minds. But during that time that Maureen was gone, our youngest daughter decided that she couldn't control this anymore. And during that time that her and I were home, she'd given it to the Lord. She was also healed during that time too. So in a lot of ways, it was very affirming to us that God is actually in control of things. And that's what we really love to see. So in Lithuania, you can see the population. When we went in 2000, it was like 4 million. In actuality, it's about 3 million now. There's been that many people leaving the country to find jobs. The language is naturally Lithuanian now, but at one time their own language was outlawed because of Soviet rule. So they speak Russian, Polish, Lithuanian, Latvian, all kinds of languages over there. It's easy to find out if someone's an American over there because they only speak usually one language. Lithuanians speak minimum 2. Most of them speak 3 to 5 just because they have relatives from other countries. And because they have relatives, they have to know how to communicate. So there's many opportunities there. We start out doing a discovery camp, which is in Verena. It's bigger up here. It's by Alytus. No, it's not. It's down towards the bottom of Lithuania, and it's a beautiful place. We try to think. No, we don't have any pictures of that here today. But then we would do a daily vacation Bible school. Over there, we don't call it that. We call it a Bible camp. And that's in Alytus, which is a children's home. And we'll be showing pictures of that, too. Go ahead. It's half the size of Wisconsin. One thing we've been able to do is network. Oh, man, there's so many people we know now in Europe. It's not just in Lithuania. It's Europe altogether. Because another thing, too, is how many people we know in the United States that we never knew before that are with different missions. The lady on your far left would be Paula. She's the original missionary that we worked with over there. The lady in the middle, that's Debbie Bannon. They're with World Venture. She was 15 years in Africa, and then 10 years in Lithuania, and they just moved last year to Ireland, that's where they think they will stay until they retire. So they're the ones that were influencing us as to how to get into a mission, who to see, who to talk to. Because we had United World Missions, we had OM, we had YWAM. I mean, there's lots of different missions, but we ended up going with World Venture. And then this lady that you see, the shorter one with the red hair, she's the piano player at the church. She's Lithuanian, but during Soviet times, her whole family was shipped off to Siberia. And if you know anything about World War II during that time or during the communist occupation during that, most of those people never came back. But she was fortunate to be able to come back. And she is I'm trying to think of the word, Messianic Jew. So she is a Jew that has accepted Jesus Christ as her Lord and Savior. And she's very active. At this point right now, we are at a rally for remembering the Jews that were exterminated in Vilnius, the capital city. So it's a huge rally, and it was very peaceful, very calm. Lots of dignitaries there explaining their sorrow for what happened in their country, and a memorial to the Jewish population. Okay. Another thing too, because we're there, we get to network with lots of different things. And Franklin Graham was there 2 years. Once in Lithuania, and then the following year in Latvia. And then during that time, we decided that as long as we were in that country, we would try and become part of their team also. So we went to classes to learn how to be a counselor in a language that I do not speak. Yeah, now figure that one out. It's hard enough just to talk simple, like, hello, how are you? My name is, so it would be in Lithuania, it would be Labas rytas, manas vadas Markas. It's very simple stuff like that. But to communicate thought, the sentence structures backwards, they have 28 ways to use the word one in their language, and they're all different. And you have to know if it's for someone, to someone, about someone, last month, next month, and you go, man, my head hurts after you have a Lithuanian language lessons. It's the second most difficult language in the world. Next. So we were counselors during that time, and you can see Franklin Graham there, which is very nice in another language. Now, I'm walking and pacing. If I was just standing here, I might lose my thought. But walking and pacing really helps keep it together. And when you're with another language, you have an interpreter, which even helps you keep it together even better, because You would say a sentence or two sentences, and then your interpreter interprets it. That makes sense. But that gives you time to put all your thoughts back in the right order. Because sooner or later, my thoughts are going to get messed up and out of order. That's why I've got all my slides numbered up here, too. So that helps me out. Go ahead. So it's called Vilches Festivales. We got to be able to go on out in the streets. Oh, name slips me. Who am I? Bonnie. Bonnie Blanco was there with us, and we were out handing out flyers at the main bus stops. And we were getting a lot of guff. Guff would be the mild term. Yelled at in Russian is very unnerving, because Russian is a very gruff language to begin with. And when you're getting yelled at in Russian, you really, am I going to get hit? You know, that type of thing. You don't know exactly what they're thinking or whatnot. But this one gentleman was arguing with me, and he took my flyer, he tore it up, threw it on the ground, and walked away. And that was after he yelled at me. Well, then I told him that I didn't speak Lithuanian. Atsiprašau, aš nesuprantu lietuviškai, which is, excuse me, I don't understand Lithuanian. Aš kalbu angliškai, I speak English. And then he would speak a little bit of English in his very angry English. I mean, very angry. And he walked away again. And he comes back again, and he gets another bulletin from me. And he's calmed a little bit down at this point. And, you know, at bus stops they have these big things that they put up signs and things at. Well, it was very amazing, because 5 feet behind me to the left was a sign that talked about this festival that was coming on. And finally he turned around and he saw that. Wow. That instantly gave him the ability to accept what I was saying, because it was something that is a city, what would you call that? Announcement board, something like that. It was all in glass, all protected, and it had this huge poster about the Franklin Graham Crusade that was coming through. So that was pretty exciting. And he saw that, and he looks at me, and he apologized. He said that he would come, So that's really neat to see how God works in people's hearts, to see how God takes the situations that you're in, even though you're uncomfortable, and trust me, I was. But there's certain things that God puts in place that other people see to put it all together so that they can accept it. And that's how God works. We don't see it. He reveals it to us through different ways. Okay, so this is some facts about the festival. This was a 2-day festival. Saturday morning was just for children. There was 29,000 people. 29,000 people that attended this 2-day event. And out of that, there was 1,900 children that just came on Saturday morning. And it was a total children's program. Newsboys was there. There were quite a few Christian bands there of all different types of genre of music. Okay, next. We, at the orphanage that we've worked with, we had 38 children come from that orphanage. And we were so excited. I got to sit with them and sit with what's called an aukletoya, which is the house parent or house teacher that is in charge of a certain group of kids. So I got to sit with the kids that I knew and with the aukletoya that knew me to a degree, you know, because we're American, we're foreign, we are kind of strange because we don't know where we're going, but God does. Yeah. So you know, we got to work with these kids and sit there and play with them and talk with them as much as we could. My Lithuanian is like a 3-year-old, and I can communicate with 3-year-olds pretty good, even without words. But in Lithuania, usually when you're working with the real little children, we've had this happen to us many times, where you'll be working with the little kids, I mean the 4 and 5-year-olds, you know, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, and they will ask you a question in Lithuanian, and you say, "Aš nesuprantu," which means I don't understand. And so they yell it. And then you say, Aš nesuprantu lietuviškai, which means I don't understand Lithuanian. So they yell it louder. And sooner or later, one of the teachers, the auklėtoja, comes over and explains to them that this is a poor American. He doesn't know enough to learn another language, and he's here trying to help you guys. So the children will go, oh, okay, he's not deaf, you know? So it's kind of cool working with the little kids in another language. But they get to see how you interact with the children. Even if you can't communicate with them, you can still play the games. You can still comfort them. You can still interact with them. Okay, go ahead. So the number of lives that were changed, we don't know. In the first slide, you can't see it in this one, but you can see the people. This is a huge stadium. It's an Olympic-sized stadium for professional sports. And it is packed. And you can see up in the front, in the middle, those are people that have gone forward. Now in the front, what they do is they have signs up, Latvian, Polish, Lithuanian, whatever. And then what that does is it tells those people that speak that language, they can go to those areas, get materials, and have people pray with them as they accept Christ, to help them understand. So what my job was, because I couldn't actually help, my job was putting together the little bags with the different books and things like that, and then going to the different areas and saying, what do you need in whatever language I could speak, and then have to go back and get more, and then keep shuffling back and forth. So that was my job. So that was a lot of fun. It really was. Go ahead. Anyone recognize what's on these boxes? Samaritan's Purse. It's been amazing what Samaritan's Purse has allowed Christian organizations, I'll put it that way, to come in and do. And I won't use that word flippantly, because Christian organizations that use Samaritan Purse have come alongside and have been taught and trained probably the same doctrine that we have in this church. Franklin Graham, you know, if you're going to work with Franklin Graham's program, you have to accept Franklin Graham's things, just like if you were in any other church. So we were able to come in and help them out with that day. They gave out over 10,000 shoe boxes that day. That was amazing. And when Maureen and I, we went with some of the people that were helping us at that time, probably Bonnie and who was with her. We went out to the mall and had, well, what we would call the mall. It's like a super mall to us, the Acropolis, if you've been there. Some of you understand what I'm saying, because a few people have actually been there. But Acropolis, and what we were seeing is we were seeing these children carrying around their shoe boxes that were there at the morning to the children's program. They were still carrying their boxes with them. They weren't going to let them out of their sight. And this is a huge mall. It's big. It has its indoor skating rink. It has an indoor bowling alley. It has everything. It's a big mall. So it was really great to see the influence that Samaritan's Purse was leaving on that country, or leaving in that country. Another thing, too, is Samaritan's Purse has allowed evangelical, like Grace Baptist Church, the one that we worked with, to be able to go into the public school systems and to share the message of Jesus Christ with those kids. So that's been exciting. Next. What we have coming up this next year is we have a trip planned to Lithuania. It's going to be July 30th through August 14th. We're going to be leading a VBS at the Children's Home in Alytus. And then after that, the following week, we're going to be leading a discipleship English class at Grace Baptist Church in Vilnius. And a few of you have been there, and you understand where it's at. So what we're going to be doing is in the morning, it'll be VBS, and then in the afternoon, it'll be hanging out and playing with the kids. Be doing different crafts and things like that, playing games, basketball, whatever they want to do is what we will be doing with them during that time. The second week will be in Vilnius, the capital city, and what we have an opportunity there is we're going to help them to get deeper into their Bibles, and then in the afternoon we're offering an opportunity for the nationals, Lithuanians, to try and help them understand how to put together a VBS and then how to execute it. So what we want to be able to do is help them understand what it takes to put one together, because they won't be able to buy the kits that we are afforded here in the United States. How they can take the scriptures and portray the scripture stories to their children through PowerPoint, flannel graph, or just skits. And then also what type of games to put together, and crafts, and how to put those things together. So that's what we're going to be doing then also next. The children's home we work at is in Alitus. It's the largest one in the nation. Next. It has 100 and, well, this just tells about how many orphans there are in that country. Imagine the country, well, imagine half of Wisconsin. Now, Lithuania has a population of 3.5 or 3 million people. Chicago has a larger population than that. So you can see the difference in volume and people-wise, if you want to look at it that way. There are 51,000 orphans in Lithuania, and only 15,000 of those orphans live in orphanages. A lot of them are bounced between grandmothers, grandfathers, younger brothers and sisters who are now old enough to have their own places and things like that. So there's a lot of children that aren't being taken really good care of. Some of them are, but there are still a lot that don't. Next. In the orphanage that we work with, there was 163 children there. That was the largest orphanage, ages 3 to 18. And you can see here, it's a wide age group there between the little boy up in the green grass and the girl down in the corner, or the boys in the red shirt there, and the girl in the center. There's a wide age difference between mentality, because you know what it's like to raise children, okay? It's different with a 3-year-old than a 10-year-old. The things that they think are important are very different. The things that they react to are very different. So there's a lot of things that you have to be flexible with when you're working with that age group of kids. And I think God is kind of blessed Maureen and I with patience, would be one way to put it. But yet at the same time, you still have to be firm enough to keep control. So there's a fine balance between losing control and being patient with them, or keeping control and being patient with them. See, it's a pull. It's a push-pull thing. Next, please. So we'll be putting together a team to take them over there next. That was a team we took a few years ago. A couple of those you might recognize. When we get there, we'll go through all of our things, sort them out, and get ready. Go ahead. Next. And then go to the children's home on Sunday afternoon after church, where we'll sit down and meet with the kids on Monday morning. We break up the kids into different groups, because everyone's there for story time, but then we have crafts, and then we have game time. So we break the kids up for that. Next. We'll try and get through this before noon. I think we'll do it. The guy with the guitar. This is a very long story as far as years it took. But he first came to Discovery Camp thinking that it would be like the Discovery Channel on TV. He really did. He really thought Discovery Camp was going to be just like the Discovery Channel. And they're going to have experiments, and they're going to have this, and we're going to do all kinds of fun stuff. And he got there, and he was kind of disappointed, because it was all this Bible stuff, all this Jesus, all this about God. And about halfway through the camp, God started pulling on his heart, because we always have translators. This is Mikas. Mikas has actually been here and spoke in this church. But throughout that time, after Mikas accepted Jesus Christ, next, he started to work with us. And one year he said, Maureen, he started telling everyone, all the Americans, my sister's coming to camp. You have to pray for her. She really needs Jesus. She needs to know what he's about. He says, you have to pray with her. You have to pray for her. And we did. We prayed for Camila. And Camila found Jesus that week. God found Camila. God tugged on Camila's heart with the messages and everything that was shared, and she accepted Christ. That was great, because now we have 2 in the family that are believers, and mom and dad and grandma and grandpa are not. We're considered a cult. Okay, so that makes mom and dad pretty nervous. So Maureen and I would go to the children's home, which you see here, and Camilla and Mikas would come with us as interpreters. And there came a time when mom said, they can't come with you anymore because I don't want them around you. Well, there was starting something happening during that time in their mother's life. Their mother was seeing a change that happened in Mikas and Camilla. Their mother was seeing a change in the way that they acted because of this God thing, this Jesus Christ. Because in Lithuania, 73% of the population claim to be Christians. But a lot of them, there's less than 3% that claim Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. So there's a lot of difference between claiming to be Christians and actually knowing who Jesus Christ is. Well, Camilla and Mikas know who Jesus Christ is, but their mom and dad didn't. But their mom and dad started seeing all these changes. And finally they said, that's enough. My kids are changing too much. I don't understand this. I don't want this happening anymore. I don't want them around you. You can't go with them anymore. So we went for about a year going back and forth without having Camilla and Mikas with us. And that was a sad time because a lot of the kids really got to love them and know them and wanted to see them too. And of course, we needed interpreters. So that makes things more difficult too. But what happened at the Franklin Graham Crusade is because we were there and because of the communications we had and the things that they saw, they wanted to find out more. They were invited by Mikas and Camilla to come and another person to come, and they came. And they heard the gospel message spoken to them in their own language, not through an interpreter. Well, it was through an interpreter, but still it was spoken to them. And they could see that because it was put on in this stadium, they could see because of all of the work that went in ahead of it, that this must be important. Otherwise, why would someone spend who knows how many thousands and thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to put this on if it wasn't important? At that evening, when Franklin Graham made the call, I can't remember the names. Maureen could. Maybe you could. I don't remember. You're mouthing it, but I can't read your lips. Yeah, Regas and Violetta. She wanted to go forward, and she was talking to Ritas about it, and he said, "No, I don't want to." Well, you know, in Lithuanian, so it'd be. Well, I'm not even going to try and say it, but he was telling her, "No, I don't want to get up. This is too far," because they were way, 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 way up in the top at the far end. That's where they ended up getting a seat that night, and she says, "Come on, we need to go. We need to go. We need to go. We need this Jesus." And he kept saying, "No, I don't want to go." And finally she grabbed him by his hand and said, "Come on." And they went. Well, the story I remember is that she accepted Jesus Christ that night, and her thoughts started changing immediately as far as what she knew and what she understood. God started working in her mind immediately. And she was able to talk to her son and her daughter about it too, about that change that Christ had made in them. And now she's feeling it in her heart. And now Ritas is seeing a change. Oh my goodness, my children, now my wife? What's going on here? And he would bring them to church and leave them. And either he would go or he would just sit in the parking lot in his car the whole time. And he would just sit there. And one day he came into church. This is quite a while later, like a month or two. And then after that, I started noting a difference in his life, in the things that he was doing, in the things that he was being involved in the things that he was offering to do. And finally I asked him, because no one had told me. I had heard, yes, he accepted Christ. But I wanted to ask him what this change was. Why am I seeing a change in you? And finally he smiled at me. And he says, "Yeah, I accepted Christ." So it was a long, long journey. This took over probably 8 years or longer, maybe even 10 years, between when Micah's first accepted Christ. And God used that whole experience on that family until finally the whole nucleus of that family has accepted Christ. Well, now they're working on their grandmother and grandfather. So we're still praying for them, and we're still hoping that they accept Christ also. Next. We use flannel graph. Now we can use PowerPoint. We can use computer. They have an overhead there, so that makes it easier. Yeah, name just slipped my head right there. Bang, gone. But you know these people, or at least you know some of them. And I can't think of them. Yeah, Kathy Jacobson and Baki. Yes, correct. Thank you very much. Helps me out. Go ahead. So you get to share that this is the wordless book, and these came from People's Church. Now the thing is with a different language, you can't directly translate things, because one thing, sentence structure is wrong, and another thing, in the English language, we use, like, how many twos are there? How many different words for two? Like 3, okay? Well, in Lithuanian, you can't say, I'm going to someplace, or the two of you will do something else. You have to use the proper, in my head, it's 2. I used to write just 2, T-O. That meant all 3 of them. It worked for me. But, you can't do that in the Lithuanian language. So to translate even the song from the wordless book, it takes a long time to translate that. It would take usually a day and a half for a translator to sit down with the words and translate that into Lithuanian. So what we did that day, we did sing the song, but the translators couldn't translate it. So that didn't work. So then we ended up having to explain the story between the color of each page. So every child got to take home a wordless book. Go ahead. The friends you make there, not only are they temporal, but they're eternal because of Jesus Christ. They accept who Jesus Christ is, and they start to grow. Go ahead. The things that you get to do with them as far as sharing what is important or how to work together, that's another thing that you do. Next. And then when they finish it, this is another one of our translators, the girl in the red. Go ahead. Games. Someone donated us a parachute, and we took that over there. It's still there. We left it. We didn't want to bring it back. And we use that for games. And that can encompass so many children at one time to work together. Next. And then, Louise Sloss. She was there. Her sister was from another church that wasn't involved with this. But what they did is when they finished their VBS, they had all these T-shirts left over. So what they did is they allowed us to take all these leftover churches. This is a church that I'm not affiliated with at all. It's Louise's sister's church. So it's interesting how the body of Christ comes together and make things work. It's just really cool. Word of mouth gets out, and people just help out. Okay. And then in the afternoon, we did an Olympics there. So we had different games to play and things like that also. And then, of course, the little children, you have to do things separately and in a different level with them. Okay. Next. These verses have meant a lot to me over the years. And in Psalms, I can't go into the whole detail because I don't have enough time for that. But this was a portion of that verse pulled out. His name is Lord, Father of the fatherless. Now, when you're working with these kids, and you don't directly ask them, where's your mom or dad? Because they may not know. They may have died. They may have committed suicide. They may have been taken away. There may have been so many different reasons why they're not at home anymore. But these are the children that God considers his. And these are the children that we're ministering there. And it says, a religion on that God our Father accepts as pure. I can barely read that. I'm going to have to turn around. and faultless is this, to look after orphans and in their distress. Now, some of these kids you look at, and you think, oh, these are kids who got things all right. They're okay. But once you start finding out some of the circumstances between why they were there or different things, you find out that they are in distress. And it was our job to come and comfort them as best as we could, to share with them who this God of the universe is and who his son, Jesus Christ, is, and what that can mean for them, to have a father who always looks after them, a father who is totally in direct contact with them through Jesus Christ, his son. And then defend the cause of the fatherless. One of the things that Maureen and I felt God wanting us to do there is to start a halfway house, or not a halfway house, but a transition home for the children leaving the orphanage. A lot of children are literally moved out physically when they turn 18. And at that time, they're in 10th grade. So they still have 11th and 12th to do. But because they're legal adults, they're dismissed. So they have to go either live with a relative or with a family member or with someone. Some of them end up in prostitution, drug dealing. We knew some that ended up at the bus station, some of the girls. We knew of another girl who went to another country as a prostitute. We knew some kids that went into drugs. It's not a good situation for these kids because that's what they are. They're still kids. You know? So they need someone to help them out. And this transition home, when we left Lithuania, another missionary couple that started there after we did had the same vision. And we shared with them. And they have actually started taking some of the girls into their home. And at this point now, they are actually looking to buy a property to start the transition home that we felt God putting on our hands. So we told them that we will try, when the time comes, to help them raise the money that they need for that project. So we've shared that with our churches and with our mission boards that we work with. Next. This is after camp. I'm just going to zing through these. Go ahead. Bing, bing. That's very important right there. Think of a country, a former Soviet Union country, people who it was against the law for them to read, write, or even speak their own language. If you were caught with one of the national seals, there was a death penalty if you were caught with those. That's how strict the Soviets were on Lithuania at that time. And we see the same thing, light shining out of this darkness. And that's only because of Jesus Christ, what God has sent. Next. This is a picture of the castle in Turkey, and it's out on an island. That was the easiest way to defend it. And there's a bridge that goes to it, and you walk across the bridge. But what you see here is you see a beautiful plant growing, and actually what this plant is growing out of is a stump, and this stump is about this big around. So the reason I took this picture is you have the ancient history, which is visible. You have the dead stump, which is possibly the Soviet influence that they had on this country. And now you have this beautiful plant growing out of that dead stump or out of that tree. And that I symbolize as God's love, as Christ showing himself from the darkness. This is the new light that's being offered to the people here in Lithuania. I think that's the last slide. So with that is briefly how God has used our lives, and I encourage you to allow God to use your life that way too. You know, as you thumb through and you do your readings, and God pricks you with a verse, ask about that verse, what that means. Why has God made this apparent to you? How can that verse affect your life? How can you affect the lives of other people? Right now, Maureen and I are going into a new mode. I know I'm a little bit over. But right now, Maureen and I are in a new mode. We are back into support raising. Since we've come off the field, it's been amazing to lose as much support as we have, because a lot of people think that if you're not on the field, you're probably not into ministry. But yet at the same time, we still are, and we've been put into a lot of new ministries. So our needs now are quite extents when it comes financial. So we need new supporters in that. So if you would like to know more about the trip coming up this summer, come and see me after church. I've got handouts that I could send home with you that explain some of it with you. And with that, would you like the band to come back? Okay. The band will come back and close. So I just thank you again for this opportunity you've allowed me to share what God has been doing.